Hello all together. I don't know if these are our glasses of water here. I don't know. Oh, lovely. Wonderful. Sean, you would like to move the table a little bit?
No, we're good. It's okay.
No. So the stage is set. Thank you very much to all of you, and welcome to our session, which is actually connecting to that what we have just heard before very nicely. We have an insight session, which means we have a limited time of now about 19 minutes and 15 seconds to talk about the cyber secure city and infrastructure. My colleague, Sean Sutton, is from London. He's EY Director in the Advisory Centre, Cybersecurity. And Sean, you have got extensive knowledge of that. And we had a little bit earlier to talk about the Internet of Things. And we have just heard about cities like Helsinki and Amsterdam as kind of cyber cities. But my first question to you, Sean, is what actually is a cyber city? I mean, there's a lot of terminology, there's a lot of hot talk about it, but what does it actually mean, Sean?
So it's a great place to start. We've heard a lot in the last talk over the last few days, and if you walk around here in Hall 12, you'll see lots of companies who are talking to you about the Internet of Things. They're looking at selling you products or talking to you about the latest products or services that are going to connect us and make us interact with our world and our environment and the cities that we live in different ways, in new ways, exciting ways. So we hear a lot, and we are hearing increasing amounts about the Internet of Things. And at the same time, lots of people are looking at that and saying, well, what does a smart city really look like? What is a smart city? When people are saying we're going to have everything that's connected into a city, what does that really mean? And there are lots of great examples. We'll perhaps pick on 2 or 3. So I spend a good amount of my time talking to and working with energy companies. And smart grids, smart meters, they're potentially going to be a fantastic thing for consumers, because it means that we're going to have access to energy at times when it's cheaper to use it in the day. We're going to be able to turn things on and turn things off and monitor usage whilst we're away from our homes, using our smartphones, connecting up through our tablets. All sounds really great from the consumer perspective. But what are they doing with the data that they're collecting? How's that data going to be used? Am I comfortable that the data I'm providing that's being collected on me as a consumer, me as a user, am I comfortable that that's being looked after properly? Is it secure? What are they doing with it? Now, that's just one example. And maybe perhaps when I'm out of the office or out in the day walking through the connected city, I might not need to hail a taxi because my smartphone's already done it for me, and I walk out of my office and the taxi turns up, and it's like the car behind us is driverless, doesn't need me to drive it. So then I'm in the taxi and I'm talking to colleagues and emailing as I go. We do some of this stuff today, but I think where we're going, where the Internet of Things is taking us, and where the smart city is going to take us in 5, 10, 15 years, looks like a really exciting place. But security is a really important part. And what's really interesting for me, over the last 10 years, I've spent a lot of time working with organizations, helping them secure their infrastructure. And 10 years ago, it was a bit easier because it was a bit easier to define the perimeter. We knew that we had 1,500 employees in this office, and we had one network, and they were all connected, and we had all our systems in our data center. Well, that's not really how we work today. It's certainly not how we interact with services as consumers. We use cloud, we store photos all over the place. We use a whole host of services to make the way we live and to interact with our friends and colleagues and families. Now, it's very different, and business is the same. So 10 years ago, the conversation I was having with organizations with, how are you securing your infrastructure? That's still part of the conversation. But when we look at smart cities, and these companies are looking at how do they better integrate their services into a smart city, or how do they better reach more consumers and provide a better service or more products to those consumers, security is becoming increasingly important, because let's all face it, we're all pretty savvy now around security. We see it in the media all the time. We hear about lots of big organizations, very well-known household names, who have been at the heart of a cyber attack or who have suffered from some sort of cyber activity. So we're all pretty aware that there's something in cybersecurity. It's quite important for us. So if I go back to my point before about me maybe having a smart meter, my phone telling people where I am, and the taxi that's driverless, you get all that data and you start putting together, and that gives quite a detailed profile on how I live my life and where I move and what I do. And that's fine, and I'm pretty comfortable with that as a security professional, but only as long as that data's been secured, and that the way in which organizations who are operating our smart cities of the future are really making sure that privacy isn't being breached, privacy rights aren't being breached, and that they aren't sharing that data in an inappropriate way with other organizations who I might not be so comfortable with. So, smart cities are very exciting. We're absolutely on the tip of the iceberg. 1% of things today is connected. That 1% is soon going to be 5, 10, 15, 20%. What we're going to see over the next 5, 10, 15 years is going to be a real shift away from how we live our lives, and certainly from a business world, how we operate today. It's really going to start reaching into much broader places. So it's exciting, but let's just not forget that the security is important.
Sean, you touched already a few of the issues I would like to raise. And as I said, this is an insight session on cyber secure city. Let's have a quick run through 3 very important areas of a cyber secure city: transport, health, and education. Let's start with the transport. How can you make that safe, secure? Because there is a lot of data forwarded from one side to the next.
Yeah. So let's think about an example, a transport example. So I'm sure everyone has spent 5 minutes, sometimes sat at a red light in a town thinking, oh, when's this light going to change? Maybe in the future the smart cities are going to be more dynamic, so they're going to have better traffic management systems behind them. So actually you won't be necessarily sat there waiting for that red light to change because it's set on 5 minutes, and it'll be a lot more dynamic. Or maybe we take that a step further, and actually people who need to get across town quickly or through the cities quickly, like police, fire services, ambulance, maybe the vehicles they're driving are more connected and integrated into the actual transport infrastructure within a city. And they don't need to stop at lights because the lights are changed and they've plotted their route and they know where they're going, and the city's moved itself out of the way. So, there are lots of exciting things where transport and smart cities are really going to change how we operate. But at the flip side is, there are lots of security implications for that sort of scenario. What happens if someone hacked into that traffic management system and could cause all sorts of problems and cause all sorts of damage and chaos? And this is where security has to be built in, not just to the underlying infrastructure, but into the systems that are connected to some of that underlying infrastructure as well. So this is where I think we'll see over the next few years people who are responsible for designing cities, the town planners, people that perhaps don't even have IT in their job title, let alone anything else, will be sat next to security professionals, will be sat next to risk professionals, will be sat next to transport logistics professionals, because together, collectively, they want to create that smart city for us. But each component is really important in its own right, and security is a key part for that sort of, in that example.
Let's dig a little bit deeper into these issues. Subject healthcare. Let's assume I'm having one of these wearables and I've got my annual flu, as it happens. So the wearable is connected to my local GP. The local GP is part of a network of various hospitals and experts. And how is the data secured? So healthcare is, first of all, an incredibly important issue because it goes down to very sensitive data. But how do we keep that safe in a smart city? Because it's part of the setting of a smart city, isn't it?
Yeah, I think if you think about the benefits that could arise from that scenario, where you've got something that monitors your health and your vital signs, and it's interconnected to the hospitals in the area you're visiting. And let's say I travel a lot with my role across EMEIA, but it'd be great if I was able to know that all my records, if they were ever needed, were available to Zurich or Hanover or wherever I might be at a particular given moment in time. Theoretically, that's great, and I'd be very happy with that. But at the same time, think about the information, the data that would be available to someone if they breached perhaps some of that connectivity or some of the databases behind that sort of setup. So that's where security becomes even more important for people. And actually, the future success of smart cities and consumables and all the different parts of the example you just outlined there, in part that is going to be linked to people becoming comfortable with that data and the information they're providing being secure. Because I'm pretty sure that, I won't ask everyone to put their hands up, but I'm pretty sure everyone won't want to provide information and make sure it's all interconnected if they don't feel it's going to be looked after properly, if it's insecure. Because that information is very personal. It gives a very clear picture about you. You could determine, if you put the transport piece together, you could determine where you go, what your lifestyle is like. That's suddenly a very detailed profile as you as an individual. You can't really change that. So if someone steals that view of you, it's quite a difficult thing to then kind of get over. You're going to be, there's a digital image of you. We saw before in the video between the two talks, that the way we start to interact now, and this will only increase in the future with the virtual environment, is only going to gather pace. So this is where security is really key.
Sean, let's try to make it even more real. Coming back to my annual flu, my data, as I said, gets passed on to a local GP. The local GP is passing it on to the next local hospital with all these experts, and they say this is quite a serious thing, I need treatment. But also the data gets passed on to my health insurance. So it could actually happen that ultimately my health insurer knows more about myself and my physical condition.
Yeah, that's a scary thought.
About myself.
That's a scary thought, isn't it?
It is a scary thought, absolutely, yeah. So how do we make sure this is not going completely out of control? It gets hacked by, I don't know by whom.
I mean, there's lots of groups out there that do all sorts of hacking and all sorts. But let's not go down into that particular area at the minute. If we perhaps step back and think about the information that we're providing today, just through basic things like Facebook and LinkedIn, we're quite happy with sharing information, and I think that's a good thing. It's important though not to forget that we're handing over quite a lot of valuable information. Often we're handing it over reasonably free. And we want to make sure that companies are securing that data and are securing the infrastructure and securing the ways in which we interact with those systems. And that's where we, as an organization, we spend a lot of time with a whole host of organizations looking at how they not only secure their own infrastructure, but how do they use that consumer data? What are they doing with it? How are they sharing it? Is that right? Is that appropriate? There are lots of regulatory requirements, certainly around healthcare data in the US. There's all sorts of restrictions about what you can and can't do. Same in Europe with broader data privacy requirements. There's lots of regulation, and that's sort of driving some improvement. That's certainly giving people a basis, a benchmark, if you like, for making sure that the way in which they're accessing, using, sharing, and managing that data is appropriate. But at the same time, that's not particularly innovative. And a lot of the companies I work with, they're now not just saying, how can you help us secure our infrastructure? Because we know we need to be secure as a business, but how can we use security to drive more interest and demand in our products? We want to be out and we want to be market leading, but we recognise security is important for our customers and our consumers. So we need to put security in there. And actually, some organisations I work with are really using security as one of the key messages for why would you buy our product? Why do you want to use our service? Well, because we're secure, and here's how we're secure, and here's how we look after your data. So security is now not just an introverted, we need to make sure our castle is safe. It's also looking at how can we drive innovation through the products and get into market spaces and get people comfortable with using our services and using our products.
John, that also means that EY is just not an additional thing you can have. It is actually very important to have experts, advisors like you are, in order to advise communities, hospitals, doctors, health insurers, that they don't overstep their borders.
I mean, we were involved with a real range of organisations from across sectors like oil, gas, power utilities, where smart meters, digital oil fields are really relevant, through to financial services. And I've spent time working in computer-based trading houses where the speed of a transaction is hugely important to that particular business, and security has often been an afterthought and could damage the particular business. But equally, working with some very well-known drinks manufacturers, even drinks manufacturers are looking at how they manufacture, how they transport the production lines. They're really digitalizing the environments that not just produce but sell and automatically reorder. So it's so interconnected, and data centric to that, and security around that data is key.
Picking up on what you said, it's all interconnected. We have about 5 minutes left. Let's go quickly to the point of education. I mean, European countries are actually faced with the fact that there are more and more migrants coming to Europe. Not only to Europe, but let's take the EU countries as such. education is very important in order to integrate migrants into society. Is there already an initiative running that schools are interconnected and exchange experiences, and they can actually rely on other schools' experience in order to get these people as part of our society?
I mean, I think education's, I mean, if you think where it was a long time ago, 15 years ago. So when I first went to university, email was the new thing. That sounds quite amusing now, because my 5-year-old's got email accounts and he knows how to use a computer better than me. So when he's in school,
emails?
He does. Yeah, I can't open. But when he's in school, he's not just sat there with pen and paper. You know, he's interacting on whiteboards. They use tablets. You know, so just the way in which kids from a very young age and the education system is embracing technology has changed significantly in the last 10, 15 years. You know, in the same way, universities and integrated movement across universities, whether that's for lecturers and research, you know, research institutions joining together, a lot of this activity is now happening in the cloud. You know, you've got lots of collaboration platforms. You know, so it's not just the students and the way in which students learn. It's not just how the academic environment are put together. It's a real shift away from the last 5 or 10 years, and it's only going to increase. You know, as we have more people migrating through, new ideas are shared, and new ways of working, new innovation comes through. So it's rapidly changing, but security is a strand that's really important throughout. There
was one question here. Have we got a mic for the question, please? It's coming. Getting close to you. There. Brief, please.
Yeah, I would like to ask a question, make a comment. First of all, my comment regarding the confusion between security and privacy. There is really a big confusion. I don't know why. It could be a business-driven confusion, intentionally to confuse private issues with security issues, including the health information about a person. That's private, not security issue.
That is the question. Thank you.
Okay, this is the comment.
Oh, that was the comment. Okay.
And my question is, really, I would like to know if we can connect the security discussion to the issue of smart cities. I would like to know the infrastructures that is in the future for those smart cities. When we talk about security, are we talking about issues that exist today we are facing of hacking, stealing money from the banks, playing with people's accounts, email accounts, and issues like that? Or are we talking about global security issues?
Sir, I have to cut you short here because we have a very tight network.
Actually, I'm finished. So,
thank you very much. Thank you. Would you like to...
Yeah, so very quick answer. I'll just say yes. So look, I think the important thing here, first of all, security and privacy are pretty intrinsically linked. So yes, they're separate topics, but actually there's a real blurring of the lines between what people do with data that's private and how they want it securing. So I understand your point. I'm not sure I completely agree. But let me get on to your question. You know, we see today, it's like a game of cops and robbers. You know, you go back 15, 20, 30 years, and bank theft happened when someone drove a big truck through the side of the wall, stole all the cash and drove off. Pretty sure we don't see that very often anymore, if at all. And that's because the security measures have improved to an extent where it's just not possible to do it and get away with it. You know, we're in a position today in our current cyber world that actually cyber hacking, getting into a bank and stealing data and digits, zeros and ones, that's what we see. That's what we're seeing today. There will be a point in the future, and I'm not going to say when in the future because I don't know and nobody does, there'll be a point in the future where that sort of cybercrime is almost eradicated because it's so difficult, because it's so prohibitive, and we'll see something else. But the important thing is, we see an evolution, and as cyber security professionals get smarter and better and look at how we can work together and improve how we secure infrastructure, well, the gangs behind the hacking and the criminal fraternities, they do the same. So it's constantly one step, cops and robbers. It's, so we will see an evolution. We will see the threats of tomorrow different from the threats today, because we know the threats today were different from what they were yesterday. But that evolution, it's trying to look at security rather than as a bolt-on at the end, as how do we build it in from the start? How do we make it intrinsically linked to the way in which our smart cities operate, and we operate with them?
I suppose, and actually I know this is a pretty honest and straightforward answer, because we haven't got all the answers yet, because it is a process that is still running. But I'm very grateful to you, Sean, for letting us participate in your knowledge. And thank you very much to all of you for participating in this session. Thank you.
Thank you.